Marcus, straight to that top corporate story of the day here in France.
Yeah, we're starting in the telecom sector. French media giant Vivendi has surprised both investors and the French government this Friday. It announced that it's entering exclusive talks to sell its telecom unit SFR to cable operator Numéricable. Expectations had been building that Vivendi would pick a rival bid from the conglomerate Bouygues instead. Delano de Souza has more details.
Vivendi is hanging up the phone on Bouygues. SFR's parent company has chosen Numéricable as the preferred suitor for its telecom unit. Numéricable's cash offer of nearly €12 billion was higher than that of Bouygues. Vivendi's board also says that France's competition watchdog is likely to clear a tie-up with Numéricable faster. Had Bouygues won, the number of operators would have been reduced to 3. It will now remain at 4, and it sets the scene for tough competition.
Les économies nécessaires que devront faire les opérateurs.
The necessary savings which operators must make will continue if the lowering of prices different for each operator is maintained. There's a strong chance that the lowering of prices will continue.
Ce que je disais avant va se poursuivre.
Competition in the French mobile market was stepped up after the entrance of low-cost operator Free Mobile. Their entrance in 2012 saw prices drop to record lows. It was around then that SFR stopped being a cash generator for Vivendi. The government says it would have liked to see the number of operators decrease.
We're in favour of returning to 3 cell phone operators because we believe it won't be a problem for customers and it will stabilise a sector in which we have to invest.
If it is ultimately successful in its bid, Numéricable stands to gain access to SFR's large retail network. The new entity will be the second largest mobile operator in France. For Vivendi, selling off SFR is an attempt to focus more on its media business. The company will now enter into 3 weeks of exclusive talks with Numéricable's parent company, Altice.
And as I was saying before, the deal between Vivendi and Numéricable took markets by surprise this Friday. Numéricable shares closed more than 12% higher, and Altice, the parent company of Numéricable, its shares was up more than 7%. Vivendi shares, they were pretty stable, whereas Bouygues shares, on the other hand, tumbled almost 3%, closing really, well, a lot down there on the day. Bouygues shares did. Now, there are warnings that Russia's economy will pay the price as the Kremlin faces off with the West over Ukraine. American bank Goldman Sachs has lowered its forecast for Russian growth this year. The bank says the Russian economy will take a hit because of an outflow of capital sparked by the standoff between the West and Moscow. Goldman says $45 billion have left Russia this year as investors are being turned off the country. The bank now predicts a 1% expansion for Russia this year. The previous forecast was for a 3% expansion. Now, the Moscow stock market tumbled earlier on Friday and hit its lowest level since October 2009. It recouped some of the losses before the close, but it still ended down around 1%. Ever since the standoff over Crimea started, the Russian index has lost more than 17%. As you can see there, the sell-off started in earnest at the start of this month when the Russian parliament gave President Putin the permission to send troops into Ukraine. And the fear is that this index will take an even harder hit if Western nations raise sanctions on Russia. We're going to take a look at how global markets are trading this session. In the United States, we've seen the indices closing in negative territory, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average coming down around about 0.25%. Worries about Ukraine weighing on that index as well. In Europe earlier, we saw a mixed picture when it comes to the main indices. The DAX was in positive territory at the close, but that followed a sharp drop on Thursday. The DAX was up around about 0.5%. Let's talk you through a few other stories that we're following for you. Chinese internet retailer Alibaba is preparing one of history's biggest share listings. That's according to the Financial Times, which is reporting that the company is planning to raise at least $15 billion. It may surpass Facebook's initial public offering, which raised $16 billion back in 2012. The FT also says that Alibaba is likely to snub Hong Kong and list its shares in New York instead. BP can once again do business with the federal government in the United States. The oil giant was shut out of the US government, or shut out of US government contracts rather, after the Deepwater Horizon disaster in 2010, the biggest oil spill in American history. But now the government says BP has agreed to key improvements when it comes to safety and ethics. And also in the United States, McDonald's is facing lawsuits in 3 different states over workers' salaries. The suits in California, Michigan and New York claim the fast food chain and some other of its franchises had stolen wages. McDonald's stands accused of violating minimum wage and overtime regulations, as well as forcing employees to working off the clock. The company says it's investigating the claims, adding that it's committed to the well-being of its staff. Okay, that is the business news for now. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you very much indeed, Marcus Carlson. Well, it's time now for our daily date with all the goings-on online. Web news is next.